Hello and welcome. My name is Ellen with Ellen Estelle, and today I'm going to be showing you how to sew Mccalls M7740. This is a missus dress that is fully lined with a center back invisible zipper and sleeve and back variations. I've already made view D, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make view B. I love the simplicity of this dress, but what I especially love is that it only takes 2 yards of fabric. I chose to use Spoonflower fabric that I designed and printed. I used Spoonflower's 100% cotton, which has a nice hand feel. It's a little bit stiff, but it still has a nice drape, but it presses really nicely. And the fabric that I designed is a hibiscus print, in which I printed a larger scale. I don't know if you know, but on Spoonflower, when you're looking at the print that you're choosing, on the right hand side is a scaling tool, and now that zooms in and out, but that also determines the scale of which you're going to print the pattern. So I chose the scale to be a little bit bigger, so it'd be more of a tropical print. And since I only printed 2 yards, I needed to find a dress pattern that I could use. This pattern calls for cotton blends, crepe, stable knits, or chambray, and it also needs a lining fabric. Depending on the view, you might also need a hook and eye and 2 5/8" buttons. Keep watching to learn more. First, start out by cutting out your pattern pieces. With only 2 yards of printed fabric and a one-way print, I had to be very strategic with how I cut out my dress. Make sure to transfer all markings and notches. Be sure to cut out a suitable lining fabric. I chose a lightweight woven fabric in white. To begin sewing, start out by sewing the darts at the back skirt pieces and the bodice front darts. Sew your skirt together first by attaching the back skirt pieces to the front along the side seams. Sew the side seams together at 5/8" seam allowance. Make sure to finish all your edges with a serger or pinking shears. Sew your bodice together by attaching the back bodice and front bodices together at the side and shoulder seams at 5/8" seam allowance. Finish the raw edges and press the seams open and flat. Repeat all these steps for the skirt and bodice lining. To finish the raw edges of the bodice back tie, fold under the 3 longest edges as small as possible. I found it easiest to press down the edges at 2/8" seam allowance and then press under again. Stitch in place and repeat for both ties. Now attach the ties to the back bodice with right sides together at 5/8" seam allowance. Be sure to match the markings and notches. The ties will go in between the circles. Before we attach the bodice and skirt together, it will be easier to sew in the invisible zipper to the center back of the skirt. Line up your zipper with the markings and stop at the large circle. Sew the center back skirt together the rest of the way down to the hemline. Finish the raw edges with a serger or pinking shears. Attach the center back seam of the skirt lining together from the large circle to the hemline. Finish the raw edges all the way up to the waist seam. Leave the seam open where the zipper should be. Now to attach your bodice lining to your fashion fabric, stitch the fabrics together with right sides facing at 5/8" seam allowance. Leave the waist seam free. Finish the raw edges. When you flip it right side out, your bodice should look like this. Be sure to press all edges nice and flat. Understitch the lining as much as you can to prevent the lining from showing. Now it's time to finish your armholes. Reaching through the bodice, pin the lining and fashion fabric together with right sides touching all the way around the armhole. Stitch at 5/8" seam allowance and finish the raw edges for both sides. I find it easiest to start sewing at the shoulder seam and sew the rest of the way around. That way you are starting and ending at the smallest and tightest part. To achieve the best results, you will want to understitch the lining around the armholes as well. Your armholes should look like this. Now we're going to attach the bodice and skirt together. To attach, pin the bodice and skirt together along the waist seam with right sides together. Match all the markings and notches. Leave the bodice lining free when sewing. The bodice will not reach all the way to the center back of the skirt. Sew at 5/8 inch seam allowance. Now attach the skirt lining to the bodice lining at the waist seam with right sides together. Finish all the raw edges. To close the lining, sew the lining around the center back zipper. Reaching through the skirt, match the edges of the lining and the zipper together. Stitch this seam as close to the zipper teeth as possible. Repeat for the other side. The last thing to do is hem the skirt. I chose to hem the fashion fabric and the skirt lining separately. It is slightly tricky to hem because there's a slight curve. I found it easiest to do a basting stitch at the center front and back, and to pull the thread tighter at these curves when sewing. And now we're done. I love the simplicity of Mccalls M7740. It's a great pick if you only have 2 yards of fabric. Be sure to check out my Spoonflower site to shop more of my fabric designs, and be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time.